an absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you, Theodora, where is she, for inviting me. Soy Efrat, la hija del Dr. Goldratt, y son los últimos palabras que puedo decir en español. Entonces voy a continuar en inglés. Broken English. You know, international language is not English, it is broken English. So I'm very proud to continue in broken English, but if there is anything you don't understand, everything that I'm saying too broken, please feel free to raise your hand and say, Efrat, you missed something, can you explain again? And I will be absolutely happy to explain again. So, let's get started. I would like to start with the current reality in very many organizations these days. Some say in every organization these days. And it doesn't matter where you are, whether you are in production, in projects, or anything in between. And if you are in projects, whether you're talking about IT, engineering, banks, army, any type of project, the current reality seems to be the same. Do I have a remote? Cool. I'm going to start with one sentence, and I'm going to ask you whether you agree that this is part of our reality, and then I'm going to take it from there. Okay? Projects take longer than estimated. Would you agree? It's a very good start. So if projects take longer than estimated, and we are on a deadline, we gave commitment, we need to deliver to our clients or to someone else who needs to take the project further, then there is pressure to finish projects on time. If there is pressure to finish projects on time, and we know that if we will start late, there is no chance we will finish on time, then there is pressure to start early. Do you agree? There is pressure to start early, but we are still busy with other projects that we haven't finished yet, which means there are more projects in the process. Some that we are about to complete, some that we are in the middle, and some that we just started early, hoping we will finish them on time. Which means there is pressure to multitask. We jump between one project to the other, trying to make progress in whatever we can. And if there is pressure to multitask, it means we are busy with one project when actually at that particular time, we committed to someone else to be working on their project, which means projects take longer than estimated. And we are going around and around and around in this vicious cycle, trying to push as many projects into the pipe, into the operation, trying to get as much done as possible. This is the reality of projects. Do you agree? And we are going in that circle, trying to push more projects until there is no more capacity, right? No way we can push more projects. Very many managers around the world that I am talking to these days tell me, Efrat, this is the reality, and there is not much that you can do about it. We don't really know how many projects we can do in the operation. We can only do our best. So we wake up in the morning, we go to work, and we try to make progress as much as we can. This is the best we can do, and that's our reality. Is it? Is it really no way to change our reality, and we have to live like that throughout our career? I would like to suggest today the theory of constraints approach to managing operations, production as well as projects. Same principles, they look a little different. To break out of this vicious cycle. And in order to break out of this vicious cycle, we need to look at the invisible elements inside the operation that I would like to cover today. A good way to start is to look at that reality from a visual point of view. Let's say that all our projects are actually marbles. The pipe is our operation, and as we said, we are trying to push as many marbles as possible, right? Trying to get to start early, and we are currently choked, hoping to get as many possible through the pipe, right? Let's forget about projects for a minute. Let's forget about operations. If you just look at this pipe with these marbles, is that the only way to get marbles through the pipe? My question is, how can we get the marbles through the pipe faster? You know who gives me the fastest answer to this question? Kids. They don't have any preconceived notion. They don't think this is the reality we have to live for. They look at this pipe crammed with marbles and they say, Efrat, listen, come on, this is easy. What you need to do is to have less marbles in the pipe. There are just too many of them. They can hardly move. You have to have less marbles in the pipe. And the smart kids immediately said, it's not only about less marbles, because if you have less marbles, they can float there. They can stay there for longer than they need to. You have to ensure that they fast flow, that they move as fast as possible, because we want as many results as possible. We want as much throughput through our operation as possible. This is the key. How can we get less marbles in the pipe on an ongoing basis and ensure fast flow? This is the key to the solution of how to manage projects better these days. But now let's move on to discuss it in organizational terms. Having less marbles in the pipe means controlling WIP, controlling the amount of work in process that we have in the operation. This is originally a term that is taken in English in the United States from production, but it's exactly the same in projects. We have the operation, we need to control the amount of active projects that we have, and we need to make sure that the amount of projects that we have active matches the capacity of our operation. Now, I know that many say, we don't really know what is the capacity of the operation. We can't really tell, so there's not much that we can do about it. But actually, we can. We can determine what is the capacity of our operation. How? If we actually analyze the operation, we can tell that different parts in the operation have different capacity. Some parts of our operation, in the beginning, in the middle, of the end, have a lot capacity and things go through there very, very fast. And some parts of the operation are way more limited. And they don't have enough capacity. So we see a lot of work standing in line, waiting, sometimes for weeks, to be handled by that part. So when we ask what determines the capacity of the operation, what is the answer? What determines it? Those who read the goal. What determines the capacity of the operation? Yes, please. The slowest capacity, Herbie, right? The constraint is the most limited resource in the operation. Here I gave it a very strict illustration, so it can only take care of one project at a time, but very often it can take care of more. But it cannot take care of many projects like the other parts of the operation. There is always one that is more restricted. And because it is more restricted, there is a very large queue of projects waiting for it, right? So when we ask, so how many projects should we have in the operation in order to move as fast as possible? The answer is depending on your constraint. This is the invisible element that when we identify it, when we are aware of it, when it's no longer invisible, It allows us to manage the projects much better. It enables us to have control over the entire system by using a mechanism that is called drum buffer rope. What does it mean? The constraint is actually a good thing. It is a limitation, but it's a positive limitation. It can serve as our drum. You know the drummer in the head of the marching band, right? So the drum is the constraint. It can tell us what is the pace that we can accomplish, that we can make progress in projects. Of course, since this is the constraint with the most limited capacity, we have to make sure that it always has something to work on, right? So we need, it's not only the drum, we also need a buffer. We need extra work in front of it so we can always get more projects done. And the beautiful thing about it is, see how it controls the entire operation. We can use ropes. One rope goes from the constraint to the beginning of the operation. We know what project the constraint works on now. We can estimate approximately how long it takes it to complete. We know how many projects are in the buffer. So the rope that is tied to the beginning can actually tell the people when to release the next project to the operation. This is how we control the whip. This is how we control the amount of projects, and we make sure that we don't have too many projects and we get choked again. We can also have another rope from the constraint to the end of the operation, enables us to promise reliable due dates, reliable commitments to our clients or to the next person or department that needs our project to take it further. This is how you manage operations with the theory of constraints. Of course, there is a lot more to it, but as the essence, these are the principles. So obviously, what do we need to do first? We need to identify the constraint, right? Identify the constraints may look different in different operations. We need some intuition in order to identify it. But in essence, we are always looking for the resource with the most limited capacity, which means we are going to have the longest queues in front of it. Let me give you an example. This is an example from a body shop. How do you say body shop in Espanol? You know, when the car breaks down because of an accident and it's squished and you need to take it to the body shop, they fix it and they fix the body and they do the paint. How do you say body shop in? Carrotero. Thank you. Almost. A body shop is an environment that is a perfect hybrid between production and operation, because if you think production and projects, because if you think about it, fixing every car is very different, and there is a lot of uncertainty once we get started. What is hidden damage that we need to fix? So it's actually fixing every car is a project. However, it is in some ways a production environment. So I chose that one in order to show you that the solution works for every type of production and projects. What is the flow of the operation in the body shop? You get into an accident, either you're able to drive the car to the body shop or it needs to be towed, and then the estimator looks at the car and fills up all the paperwork for the insurance company, right? They submit it to the insurance company, and after we get approval, or we are asking the owner of the car, do you want anything else to be fixed if the insurance company did not approve it? It goes to the body shop itself. The technicians are fixing whatever is under the hood that is damaged, and then the body people are fixing the body. Then it goes into paint, assembly, and the project is done. This particular body shop belongs to a very, very large client of us. I'm talking about a dealership, a single dealership, that has more than 500 employees. So it's a very large dealership, a very large body shop. Inside that dealership, they were in deep trouble. I mean, cars everywhere, half taken apart, half assembled. The job took forever. Very often, cars had to stay in the body shop for over a month. And no one was happy. The clients were very upset because, of course, they need their car when? Yesterday, right? And the owners were very unhappy because they weren't making any money. The insurance companies were livid because of all these emergency phone calls, approve it immediately, we need to get going. The employees were very unhappy. Everyone were yelling at each other. Everyone were mad. Something had to be done. The first step, identify the system constraint. We have to limit the whip, identify the system constraint. How? There are cars everywhere. There's yelling everywhere. How can we tell which is the resource with the most limited capacity? What they did was something that is called choke the release. They choked the release of additional cars into the body shop for just a few days. They stayed outside. And what happened was, in all the parts that had excess capacity, things started to move, right? And they didn't have anything else to work on. And what was the only place they still had a very large queue in front of it of work waiting to be processed? The constraint. Within a matter of a very few days, they were able to establish, without a doubt, that the constraint, the bottleneck, was actually the paint booth. They had a state-of-the-art, wonderful, brand new, extremely expensive paint booth, but that was the constraint. Identifying the constraints enables us to control the whip, but in order to be efficient, in order to get the maximum that we can out of the operation, we want to be profitable as much as possible, right? Is there anyone here who is not interested in being profitable? We need to manage the constraint. We need to make sure that we get the most out of our operation. How do we do that? Step number 1 out of the 5 focusing steps is always identify the system constraint. But that is only the beginning. Next, let me say one more thing here before I move to the next step. In different environments, there are the constraint is in different places in the operation. In operations that are more similar to production, the constraint will be in the system. We need to look for it along the operation. But in project-oriented environment, often it looks a little different. Let's look at the dynamics of a very, very simple project, only 4 tasks. We start with A1, then we can continue to A2. A4 we can do in parallel, and then assembly in A3, and the project is completed. One would have thought that the constraint is somewhere in these blocks, in the tasks of the project. But actually, this is not the full picture. If we look at the full picture, very often, at different times, we need the help of experts or managers, right? We need to ask the expert for their opinion or for their support because obviously they are the experts and we are not, right? Or we need to ask the managers for their decision or confirmation. In project-oriented environment, especially in IT, in engineering, very often the constraint is actually one of these people here, or maybe 2. They have a long list of people, sometimes in forms of emails or paperwork on their desk, right? Waiting for them, and they're actually the constraint. It looks different, the principles are the same. So if we go back to the 5 focusing steps, and we said step number 1 is identifying the constraint, step number 2 is decide how to exploit the system constraint. Exploit is a word that I don't particularly enjoy saying when we are referring to people, but the idea is how can we get the maximum from the constraint? This is the most limited resource. We need to make sure that we are getting the maximum. Very often when we go into companies, TOC experts, we are told, we are doing the best that we can, there's very little that we can do further than that. But then starts the fun. Looking for the invisible elements, looking for the hidden capacity that is available in the constraint. And let me tell you, very often, we find excess capacity in the constraint that was just invisible before that, and we find not only 30%, but very often 60 and 70 and 80%. For example, in the body shop, the example that I referred to earlier, they told us, we are doing the best that we can with the paint booth. And I am going there over lunchtime, and guess what? No one is working, and everyone went to lunch, and the paint booth is empty, and it doesn't operate. And I was like, okay, what's going on now? And the answer is, oh, I'm sorry, well, they went to lunch. I said, fine, no problem going to lunch, but how about making sure that the paint booth is operating before you go to lunch, right? Every hour that is wasted on the constraint is an hour that is wasted for the entire operation. Think about it. We need time to process. These are very new concepts. I highly recommend, as Theodora said earlier, read the goal. It wasn't just lunch. What we found out later was that due to safety regulations, they had to make sure that the paint booth is working only when people are around. So if they had a whole body to paint and it would have taken 5-6 hours, they wouldn't start the job if it was something like 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because then they leave the paint booth open, working, and they have to go home. Working hours in the body shop are 8 to 4 in the afternoon. So think about it, for half a day, if they didn't have immediately after that full body, like a door that they needed to paint, they would just leave the job for the next day. They said, we are doing the maximum that we can. We have to comply with safety regulations, their fire department regulation. I am not ever saying don't comply with fire regulations, but come on. Did you bother to ask one of the workers if he doesn't mind working not 8 to 4, but actually 12 to 8? Do you know how many young people actually prefer to wake up late in the morning and work in the evening? The excess capacity that we are revealing when we put our mind into it and making sure the constraints operate as maximum is unbelievable. The same goes if the constraint in the operation is in a project environment. Do you know how many times we talk to the manager who is the constraint and he's telling us, listen, there is not a minute in my day that I'm not working. I am working when I'm eating. I am working when I'm going to the bathroom. You cannot find another minute in my day. What are you talking about, exploit the constraint? And then we find out that from the previous role, he's in charge of HR. It has nothing to do with his commitment to help the projects. And he's actually holding back progress of the projects, sometimes for weeks, because he's also in charge of other things that have nothing to do with that. Tremendous excess capacity. Does that make sense to you? Because I know for many it's rather new. Step number 3. By the way, when I'm talking about extent number 2, exploit the constraint, most of the time I'm talking about, I would say, 9.9 out of 10 cases, we don't invest any money in that point. There are no investment. We are looking at the constraint the way that it is, and we find excess capacity in the way that it is right now. Number 3, subordinate everything else to the above decisions. This is very important. The synchronization of the operation. For example, If we determine that this particular manager is the constraint, and now we have an emergency meeting that we have to hold in order to make a decision in an important project, and everyone's saying, oh, I'm too busy, I'm too busy, I'm too busy, who should determine the best time for the meeting? The loudest person or the constraint? The constraint is the most precious person. His time is the most valuable, so he determines what is the appropriate time for him for the meeting. Everyone else subordinates to him. It creates order, it creates priority, it creates synchronization in the operation. Then the chaos goes down when we manage that way. This is only part of what subordinate means, but I want to continue. Next is elevate the system constraint. If we decided that the constraint is too narrow and what we can produce is not enough to get the throughput that we want, elevate the constraint. This is the time for considering more expenses or more investment. I'm referring back to the body shop, it made no sense whatsoever to buy another paint booth. This is very, very expensive equipment, and it wasn't the right way to go. But next door, they found an independent body shop that was extremely happy to subcontract whatever they wanted when they didn't have enough capacity in the paint booth. They will paint it for them. And then they started making a lot of money. When you manage according to the constraint, you get order, you get synchronization, things are smoother. It made sense if we want to get a lot more done because they had a lot of excess capacity with the technicians, with all the other resources, the estimators. They could process many more cars. And some of the work they subcontracted to the body shop next door. Step number 5. If in previous steps a constraint has been broken, go back to number 1 and start again. What do I mean by that? The body shop could have decided that they are going to subcontract a certain amount of the work, and the constraint continues to be the paint booth. They can also decide that they subcontract a ton of their body shop, and then the constraint is no longer going to be the paint booth, which is okay. They could already tell that the next resource, if the paint booth is no longer the constraint because they are subcontracting a lot of the painting, the next constraint is going to be the expert technicians. Expert technicians are very hard to find and very complicated. They didn't want to go there. So they determined that they are going to stay with the constraint as the paint booth. They need a constraint. The constraint is the drum to manage the operation and to make sure that they maintain the whip and they're not going to be swallowed with cars everywhere, missing due dates, and everything takes longer. It's a matter of conscious decision. The same goes in projects. So, we asked how can we complete projects faster? And the first part of the answer is controlling whip. Have much less marbles in the pipe and making sure that we have the right amount of marbles, not too many, definitely not too few, on an ongoing basis. And I hope by now you have a sense of how to go about it. But this is only the first step, the 1 out of 2. The second one is not less important. If we are going down in the whip and we have less projects in the pipe, we have to make sure that we complete them as fast as possible, that nothing holds them back, so we can get more projects through the operation. We need to ensure fast flow. And this is what I would like to dedicate the second half of my presentation today. What do I mean when I say ensure fast flow? Flujo, right? So my question now is, okay, so what slows down the flow of operation? What is actually the barriers? This is another type of invisible elements that we are not aware of, and we should be. Because as soon as we remove these barriers, these obstacles, we can move a lot faster. I would like to give you today 3 different examples, if I have time, 3 different examples of obstacles to flow, and you can see how harmful they are, but also that currently they are invisible. We have to surface them to handle them. The first obstacle to flow that I would like to discuss is multitasking. We're also used to multitasking. It's an inherent part of our day. We do it all the time, right? I'm going to tell you a story. I met an expert in TOC last week in Paris, Philip Morris. And Philip Morris hires a lot of young consultants to help him. He has a lot of projects, not only in France, but worldwide. And he needs to tell them about how harmful and how prevalent multitasking is. And they're going, Philip, come on, you're exaggerating. It's not that bad. What do you mean multitasking is such a big deal in organizations? So in order to demonstrate to them, he's asking them to shadow a manager for 1 day, just 1 day, and document how many times a day these managers are multitasking, switching to another task. Well, on average, what they found out, that a manager is switching to work on something else every 5 minutes. And they are engaged in over 60 different things during 1 day. So definitely multitasking is part of our reality. The question is, why, Efrat, are you saying that this is a barrier, that this is an obstacle to our flow? I would like to give the stage now to the person who actually revealed these things and developed that theory, and that would be my father. And I would like to share with you a video that was recorded. We are talking about 1998, so my apologies in advance for the quality.
This is called bad multitasking. How many times have you seen jumping from one project to the other? In some environments, it's so bad that when you're talking with the top skills, with the top people, just say, do you know what, I'm going home to work. I cannot work here. All the time, you're talking to me about, I'm going home to work. What a statement. It's unbelievable how many times we see it. What we don't realize is that this bad multitasking dwarfs everything that we're talking about. This bad multitasking is the biggest killer of time that exists. Let me show you what I mean. Suppose that I'm a resource that have to work on 3 different projects. This is the work that I have to do for one project, this is the work that I have to do in the second project, this is the work that I have to do in the third project. If I will work without all your pressures, I will finish the first project after that time and release it. Second project I will release after that time I will release it. This is the third project I will release after the third time. But can I work on that? No, because you are raising hell, project managers. Okay? And I have to be politically okay if I want to survive. So what do? Exactly what we said before. I'll give it to you until the pressure will be too much, then I'll move to you, and then until the pressure will be too much, I will move to the third person, and so on. Look what is happening. I'm working in such a way. But when I finish 1/3 of the task, can the person after me use it and start to work? No. What is then happening? If I will switch back and forth and look, these switches are much, much less than what we see in reality. Suppose that each one of them is a month's work. Okay? This means that I'm switching every 2 weeks or something like that, or a week and a half. You know that in reality many times I'm switching every 3 days. Am I right? Yeah. Look what's happening. When will the first project will be released to further work? Not here, but here. Where's the second project? Here. The third project will release at the same time. Which means what happened? I've killed all of you, but about the same level, so I'm okay. Nobody wins!
Multitasking is the biggest killer of time in projects. We are not aware of it. This is an invisible obstacle. But this is the major obstacle to flow in most project environments in the world. Because we are multitasking, things take much, much longer, delaying everything much more than they should have. The right thing to do is not only to control the whip and have less projects in the pipe, it's also to avoid as much as possible multitasking between the projects that we keep in the whip. Move our focus from multitasking to completing work. I know what some of you might think. Come on, Efrat, this is, your father was talking about it in 1998. We are today expert multitasking. We were born good multitaskers. This is why we are in the position that we are. We know how to multitask in a way that doesn't take as long as what you just said. It's not such a big deal. Well, in order to demonstrate what it means for each and every one of us to multitask, no matter how good we are in multitasking. I'm not saying for a minute you're not a good multitasker, but let's see if you're still paying a price or not in how long it takes to do projects. Do you mind doing a small exercise with me? 4 minutes? Awesome. So what I would like you to do is take out your cell phone. I know some of you are, 20 minutes with no cell phone, it's a good, take it, breathe deeply. I'm going to ask you to send a text message. And in that text message, what I would like you to do is to complete, don't start yet. I'm going to start the clock, and then you will be able to time how long it's going to take you, okay? What I would like you to do is to send someone a text message that contains 3 projects. No multitasking. In project number 1, I would like you to type the word multitasking. So project number 1 has actually 12 tasks. Each of the letters is a task. You are going to type 12 tasks, multitasking. Then you switch to the next line, the second project. I would like you to type the numbers 1 through 12. So again, the second project also has 12 tasks. And the third project, after you complete the first one, is please type these symbols, yes? There are 3 symbols, you type them 4 times, so again, the third project is 12 tasks. After you are done typing these 3 projects, send a text message. To whom? Someone that is going to ask you tonight, well, what was that text message? And you can tell him about the presentation. Questions? Everyone's ready? Go. Okay. Almost 20 seconds. Everyone still working? Is everyone done? Nice. First one, 25 seconds. 30 seconds. Everyone done? More people are done. Excellent. Excellent. More people are done. Is everyone done? Who needs more time? I can see that a few more people are working. Check exactly how long it takes you. Well, as far as I can tell, everyone is done in under 1 minute, right? How do I switch to the next one? This was the first part of the exercise. And for now, what happened was no multitasking, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to do that particular exercise only one more time. Only one more time. But this time, we are going to multitask. So what I'm going to ask you to do is precisely the same 3 projects. And by now, you're skilled. You already did it once, so it should take faster, right? But now you are going to multitask. So I'm going to ask you to type one letter from the first project, then switch to the line before, don't start yet, I didn't start the clock. Type one number, then switch to the next line, type one symbol, then go back to the first project, type another letter, and continue to multitask until you are done with the 3 projects and you send the text message. Clear? Everyone's ready? Go. We are 25 seconds. The first person was already done before. No one is even close, right? Do you start experiencing the cost of multitasking? We are 1 minute into the project, into work. Everyone were done by now without multitasking. How many of you need more time? Look at that. I stopped the clock because I think I made the point, right? So please help me out. What is the cost of multitasking? Time, stress, absolutely. Absolutely. I know the pressure to multitask is unbelievable. I am experiencing it the same way that you are. But if we get used to completing one task, completing enough so we can give it to the other person, so someone can continue to work afterwards, and then only move to the other one, we will achieve so much more. The flow will be so much better. In the beginning, there's going to be a lot of pressure, but people will get used to the fact that if they wait a little bit in the beginning, the entire flow is much better, and they will be receiving from you things much faster than in the past. So the first cause of multitasking is long lead times and delays. The more we minimize the multitasking, the less we suffer from it. But you said stress, absolutely. Guys, we don't know it because it's invisible, but multitasking is one of the main contributors to fatigue and to burnout. It's exhausting. We want to be more efficient, we want to be more motivated, we want to be more productive. We should fight the urge to multitask and switch to focus on completing things before we switch to work on the next thing. There are other costs. Quality issues. Did you notice how many times you were about to make mistakes or made mistakes when you were typing? And then people are mad, or then you have to go back and redo the work and cause further delays, right? This is another issue, rework. So many times when we multitask, it makes us do things again and again and again. This is why my father claimed from the very beginning, people, if we want to improve our operation, avoid multitasking as much as possible. Beware, multitasking is the biggest killer of time in projects. Before I move to another subject, I would like to point your attention to another type of multitasking, the mini multitasking, and I would like to do it by showing to you another video, a short video, That multitasking has to do with the daily chores. In this video, it's about an old lady who thinks there is something wrong with her, so she goes to the doctor.
I went to the doctor yesterday. He told me I have age-activated attention deficit disorder. This is how it manifests itself. I need to wash my car. As I start towards the garage, I notice that there are some letters on the kitchen table. I separate the post into bills and junk mail. I go to put the junk mail in the bin and notice that it's full. But then I think that I may as well pay the bills first. I take my checkbook from my bag and see that there is only one check left. So I go to my desk in my study where I find a bottle of Coke, which I had been drinking. I am about to look for a checkbook when I notice that the Coke is warm, so I decide to put it in the fridge. As I enter the kitchen, I notice the flowers on the worktop need water. I put the Coke down and notice my glasses, which I've been looking for all the morning. I decide that I'd better take them back to my desk, but first I must water the flowers. I spot the TV remote on the table. I know we'll be looking for it tonight, so I decide to take it back to the living room. But first I must water the flowers. I splash some water on them, but some spills on the floor, so I put the remote down to wipe up the spill. Then I continue down the hall, trying to remember what I was planning to do. Now it's the end of the day. The car isn't washed, the bills aren't paid, there's a warm bottle of Coke on the worktop. The flowers aren't watered, there's only one check in my checkbook. I can't find the remote or my glasses, and I don't know what I did with the car keys. I tried to work out why nothing got done today, and I'm baffled because I've been busy, and now I'm really tired.
Is it really age-activated? Or are we all guilty? We got so used to multitasking that we are not even aware how everything takes forever and we have to go through rework and we don't accomplish things. The principle is clear. We start working on something, we finish it. We need to fight the urge to multitask that we got used to and we are obsessed with it. We want to finish projects sooner, we complete things. This is the principles. We focus on completing. So, to summarize, multitasking is the biggest obstacle to flow. I'm not saying don't multitask. This is impossible in today's world. What I am saying is reduce your multitasking to the minimum and know that every time you decide, you make the conscious decision to multitask, you pay a price. Make sense? Excellent. So, when we asked what slows down the flow of operation, we just discussed the biggest obstacle to flow, which is multitasking. It's not the only obstacle to flow. So let's move on to discuss another one, another invisible element, and that one is lack of full kit. Full kit. Kit completo, right? So what does that mean? How often does it happen to you that you get started on another task or another project? You're all pumped, you want to get things done, you prepared some stuff, you're ready to get going, and you get stuck. Something is missing. One of the ingredients that you forgot to take care of something that you ordered and did not arrive on time, or an authorization that you were waiting for and still wasn't authorized by the manager. Something is missing. How often does that take? Does that happen? Often, right? If we want to make sure that the flow of projects is fast, we have to make sure that we have full kit. That before we start working on another project, the entire checklist is checked. Every single component that we need in order to complete the project or in order to complete that particular phase in the project, we have before we get started. We think that we are doing it, but realize how often you get stuck when things are missing and complete the kit. Get used to working with full kits. How does it look like in project operations? We get a door, a gate, at the beginning of the operation, and that gate is closed. We need one of the managers, someone who is strong enough and knows enough about the material to be the gatekeeper. We have the drum buffer rope. Remember, we are controlling the whip. So when one of the projects is about to finish and we are going to release it, and the time comes to get another project into the operation, first, we check that it has full kit, that it has everything it needs, so when it is in the operation, it's not going to get stuck waiting to things, and only then we open the door, we open the gate, and we let that project in. Gate 1 is always at the beginning of the operation, the beginning of the project flow. But in more complicated environments, very often in engineering, in construction, also in IT, in large projects like infrastructure projects, we also need additional gates at certain points in the operation. For example, integration points. When things are coming to one point from different places, we need to make sure that each and every pipe delivered what it needs in order to continue before we get started. So we need to establish additional gates, and in each gate there will be a gatekeeper to determine that the full kit was accomplished before it will let the project start in the next phase in the operation. Make sense? Wonderful. Sometimes we also need what we call gate 0 before the beginning of the operation. Let me give you an example that relates back to our body shop that I told you about. The gate 1 is when they actually start working on the car. So the technicians are working on whatever damage is under the hood, and the body shop people are starting to work on whatever damage was to the body. But very often they got stuck because when the technicians started to work and strip the car, there was a lot of hidden damage they didn't see before. And now they need more authorizations from the insurance company, and they need more approvals from the owner, and they need more ordering parts, and the chaos starts, because if they get stuck here, they will move to work on another car, and they get stuck there, they move to work on another car, the multitasking start, they are back into the vicious cycle. So what they did was they established gate 0. When a car arrives to the body shop, it is actually standing in line for gate 0. And in gate 0, an expert technician strips the car to find out all the hidden damage, and they make the list for the full kit. All the parts that are needed. And if there is a part that we have in the inventory, we put it aside. So when we actually get to gate 1, and we start working on the car, we don't find that someone else took that part, right? All the parts that are missing, they order. So they know when they will arrive. They know when to schedule that car to start to be in line for gate 1. They know how to send a complete list of authorization for the insurance company. And they can also pretty much estimate to the customer when they will start working on that car. If the car is drivable, they tell the owner, please take the car back. We will let you know in advance when to bring the car. And they promise. And now, with controlling WIP, with avoiding multitasking, and with full kit, these were the only ones they implemented, they were able to shorten the lead time of how much it takes from over a month to just a few days. I'm talking about 1 to 3 days. Can you imagine? Shorten the lead time. They didn't invest one dime apart from those works that they decided to send outside for the subcontractor for paint. And how much more they could get down. When they implemented Gate Zero and when they implemented full kit, they started to print money. Who was happy? Everyone. Customers? Yes, in the beginning, when they heard that they will have to wait for 3 weeks, they weren't very happy. But they were told, listen, we have to wait for part bada to arrive from GM, and we were told it's going to take a few weeks. So as soon as the part arrives, we are going to start working on your car. Customers understand. There is no more uncertainty. And they know that other body shops in town, the car will be just sitting there for months and nothing will happen to it, right? Customers were very happy. The owner, they were printing money, no question he was happy. What about the employees? If before that they had a turnover problem because people were so unhappy that as soon as they found another job, they would just leave. Now there was order. Now there was synchronization. People stopped yelling and blaming each other. It was a pleasure to work in that environment. It's not that there wasn't pressure. They were still wishing to get as many cars through the pipe as possible. They wanted to provide fast service. It's good for everyone. But there wasn't the headache and the stress that is related to all this yelling of multitasking and getting stuck. This is the beautiful thing about realizing the invisible elements of the obstacles to flow and removing them. I want to talk about another obstacle to flow. We mentioned multitasking, we mentioned full kit. Both of them are obstacles to flow that when we know to look for them, they are very easy to identify. This next obstacle is a little more tricky because we need more intuition to look for it. And I'm talking about local optimum. When we are making decisions about policies, about measurements, about improvements, what do we need to take into account? In most organizations these days, the underlying assumption, the starting point is that whenever we find room for improvement, we should be motivated to improve because different improvements accumulate, and improvement plus improvement plus improvement, in the end, the entire operation will be better and we will be able to accomplish more, right? So if, for example, I have that pipe, and I find that here, with some effort, maybe with investments, maybe without investment, but with a lot of effort, we will be able to get more capacity. The pipe will be able to absorb more projects. Did we improve the operation? Who said no? Yes, please explain.
Because the rest of the process will stay in the same constraint.
Thank you. Did we improve the operation? Depends where is the constraint. If the constraint is precisely here and we improve the constraint, beautiful, we can get more work done. But if the constraint is here, exactly what you said, did we make any improvement? No. Examples. That body shop that we were talking about, our major example, they received an offer from a software provider to get their process of insurance estimation a lot better. That representative of the software company came and said, listen, guys, this is ridiculous. You are in the Middle Ages. You are working with a clipboard, filling up paperwork with a pen or a pencil, and then you need to scan it and send it to the insurance company. This is ridiculous. I will provide you with the state-of-the-art iPad and software. You will tick the boxes. Your process of sending the estimations to the insurance company will be by far better. Come on, welcome to the 21st century. Remember where was the constraint? The paint booth. Will investing the money in that software improve anything? No. At best, it's a waste of time and a little money. But this is a local optimum, a local improvement that is actually of the good kind. Sometimes when we are doing local optimum decisions, it can get a lot worse. Let me tell you what happened after a few years in that body shop. I had the pleasure of working them for many, many years. After a few years in the body shop, their manager, who was excellent, was promoted to another position, and they hired another body shop manager from the outside, gave him that state-of-the-art operation that they thought is bulletproof, and they came in with the best motivations to do the best that he can to prove to them that he was worthy of that credit that he was given to manage their state-of-the-art body shop. And he came in, and one of the first things that he noticed was that on occasion, one of the technicians wasn't doing anything. So he saw one of the technicians standing there, and he was like, why are you standing there? Make yourself useful. What are you doing? And he said, well, I'm waiting for that part to get out of the paint booth so I can load the next one. And the manager would go, so how long do you need to wait here? He said, maybe half an hour. Half an hour? You are a resource, he told the technician. You should not be standing idle. Make yourself useful. Go work on that car. I can see that car here. No one works on it. There is a part next to it. Go start working on it. And that technician was like, but that car doesn't have full kit yet. He said, full what? Don't be full of yourself. Go work on that particular car. He was worried about the local optimum of that particular technician not being productive. He was worried about the local optimum, the measurement that we call efficiencies. So he made all the workers work on the cars that were waiting for full kit. And let me tell you, it was in a matter of weeks that the chaos returned. They started working on cars that didn't have full kit. They started multitasking. Then the technicians that were told to work on the cars that didn't have full kits did not have the time to work on gate 0. Within a matter of weeks, the whole thing went to chaos again. Who was unhappy? Everyone. If we are doing local optimum considerations and we don't consider even simple solutions, we don't consider how they will impact the whole picture, the global optimum, we might endanger the entire operation or we might damage the entire operation. This is the invisible element. This is an invisible element that is highly, highly important for us as managers to focus on. So, the rules of flow. It doesn't matter if you're talking in production or in project management. There are a lot of rules of flow. I don't have to go into them at all. What I would like to suggest to you is develop your motivation to think in terms of flow. This is what is important. Not to memorize the list of rules of flow, but actually to take care of those rules of flow that are relevant to your particular environment. Control the whip and remove the obstacles to your flow. A very famous saying of my father, improving flow is a primary objective of every operation. Thank you.